Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my daughter and co-host,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
Well, Heidi, we've got a great show today. In fact, we're going to be talking about preteens and teens who've had a loss. You know, we must present on that at least once a year.
And we present on it quite a bit, and sometimes we'll see teenagers and pre-adolescents and do workshops with them, and we'll say, what do you want your parents to know? And then we'll talk with the parents.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a lot about how to grief support for pre-adolescents and teens.
Yeah. We even wrote a book about it,
Yeah.
Teen Grief Relief. And our publisher said, I said, I want to write a book for teens. And she said, teens don't read books. Buy this, write it for the parents and tell them to leave it in the bathroom on the toilet. And it worked. We've had people tell us that their kids have read them there. So anyway, it's going to be a great show today because we have some people on who are experts in teen grief and have also had the experience. And I know you're going to get a lot of good information because I know you're worried about your kids. And I know also if kids have lost a sibling, also same thing. You're worried about your kids. You've had a loss. They've lost a sibling. Or maybe the teen has lost a parent and you're a single parent alone with your teen and preteen now. So we've got a lot to cover.
And you know the hard thing, and we're going to be talking about this, is that when you're a teenager, you're separating and individuating from the family. You're moving away from them. When you have a loss, you often are pulled back into the family system at just the time when you're trying to separate.
Right.
So we're going to talk with our three guests today more about all of these issues.
You know, and Heidi, as you know, home leaves you.
Right.
Rather than you leave home.
Your home is different. It's a double loss because the family you once knew is very different. Mm-hmm. And the life that you once knew is very different.
And in a flash.
Yeah.
When people take that last breath, it changes your world.
Yeah.
So we got some great guests.
Sure. I will start with Casey Mulligan, who's right here.
And she has written a book.
Author of the award-winning memoir, The Full Catastrophe, All I Ever Wanted, Everything I Feared, which is right here. Love it.
And it's her memoir. Fabulous.
And I love the cover. Mm-hmm. I think that pretty much sums it up, The Full Catastrophe. She has had numerous losses. She was orphaned at just 12 years old. Her only sibling died at the age of 27 of a heart attack, and her son Eric died at 20 in a car accident. She has written for the New York Times, Huffington Post, Modern Loss, and numerous other magazines.
Yep, you've had the full thing.
Catastrophe.
Yeah. Welcome, Casey.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, great to have you. Next to her is Dana Lerner. We've had her on before. And Dana is a trauma specialist in private practice in New York City. In 2014, a car crash killed her 9-year-old son, Cooper, who was my daughter's classmate also.
At Calhoun, yeah. I remember that. It was really devastating.
Yeah, at the Calhoun school. And Cooper was
9
and wonderful. He was a force to be reckoned with. Everybody knew him. He had such positive energy. It was unbelievable. He lit up a room. Since Cooper's death, Dana has become a leading advocate for traffic safety and victims' rights. She co-founded Families for Safe Streets, a nationwide organization dedicated to raising awareness about rising traffic violence in the United States. And Dana is founder of Cooper Stocks Way, a nonprofit that raises money for children in need. Welcome, Dana.
Welcome, Dana. And your daughter was how old when Cooper?
She was 13.
13.
Yeah.
And next to Dana is Georgia Levy. And Georgia is clinical program director at Our House Grief Support Center in New York City.
I love Our House. Oh my gosh, in LA, we've been connected with them for years. In fact, you're going to have Steve Parker stay at your house tomorrow. He and Stacy have been very involved after their child died. Yeah. For many years at our house. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's coming to New York.
Yeah, we're excited.
Amazing.
They're coming to New York, in a few weeks?
Yeah, we're opening our doors October 14th, and we're going to be the only brick and mortar grief support center in New York City. So we'll have on-site, in-person support for children from 5 years old through the rest of the life.
I will be making a lot of referrals to you, so I'm very excited about this. In her role at Our House, Georgia oversees the design, implementation, and evaluation of grief support programs for children, adolescents, and adults. When Georgia was 16, one of her best friends, Chase, died in a car accident with a drunk driver. She is a licensed social worker with over a decade of experience in trauma-informed care, working with people with various forms of loss. So welcome, Georgia.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
So our preteens and teens, since my son died so many years ago, and my daughter was 14 at the time, and Heidi was how old?
I was 20.
20, and her sister was 19, and they were at college, so Heather was home at 14. But life has changed since then with the social media. I mean, I had a client a couple of years ago who was down in Mexico, and her daughter was killed in a horse accident in Mexico, and she had a son who was 14. By the time they got home, the whole world knew.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't have a chance. They had reporters in their driveway when they got home from Mexico. So, you know, social media has changed a lot of the grief and loss world. I would say not totally negative, in some positive ways, you know, because you can get some support there, but the shock of having something happen and having the whole community know, well, they knew about my son's death immediately because it went on TV and on the radio, but the social media being in Mexico, and I don't know, maybe it's always been the network. But anyway, what are our preteens and teens up against right now, and you know, how do they deal with it?
You know, prior to joining our house, I worked with children in foster care for 10 years, and then I also ran a mental health clinic at a public school in Newark, New Jersey. And my main focus there was the teens and preteens, so it was middle school. And, you know, generally grief and how a family might mourn, it's pretty private. You know, it's within the house. But as you said, the children, their entire lives would be blasted on the internet. And so many of the kids who would come to me, the school was very heavily impacted by COVID, and they would just be mortified because children would be teasing them about their parent who died. They would just say, I just want no one to know. I don't want anyone to be looking at me, asking me questions. I just want to be normal. And especially at your teenage years when you're just so desperate to fit in and not be odd and the odd person out and to have any vulnerability, they see it as a danger, as a threat. So having their hearts exposed, it was a real challenge for them.
I'm sure during COVID it was a particular challenge because I remember Heather going to school, and her brother, everybody knew her brother, and she wanted people to talk about him sometimes, but she didn't want people to talk about him sometimes. When she went to her locker to get her books to go to a math test, she did not want people to mention her brother. But then again, at other times, she felt like they didn't
Mention
mention
him
him
enough.
enough.
And Heather, for those of you that don't know, is my sister, who was 14 when my 17-year-old brother died.
Yeah.
So yeah, you damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
And they don't know,
What they want, yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
My when my son died, my daughter was 13 years old, and they went to the same school. So you know, I think it was very difficult for my daughter because people didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to say, and she also had to see her brother's friends growing up and see them in the hallway. So you know, it was a horrible time, and it's sort of like you said, like one minute she seemed to want people to acknowledge it, the next minute she didn't. But that losing a sibling is, you know, it can be neglected. It is something that people sort of talk about. They're the ones, everyone's focusing on the parents if a child dies, and the sibling can be neglected. And it was a very difficult time. And the school was very helpful in Cooper's grade. They talked about him a lot. But I think in the grade that my daughter was in, it was much harder and they didn't really know what to do. And so I had to do a lot of advocating for her. I had to talk to her teachers and explain things to them.
I know, isn't it incredible? I went in, my daughter was, the math teacher called me because she was talking in class. So I went in and I said, you know, our brother died a month and a half ago, and he said, we've all lost parents.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Right.
I thought that was the oddest.
I really thought the teachers, for some reason, I thought teachers would know how to handle this. It was just something that I assumed, well, you're a teacher, so you would know. But there was an experience where I got a call from teacher saying, Gianna's like spacing out and she's not paying attention. I'm like, she's having a flashback. Like, you know, can you try to please think a little bit about this? So it's hard, you know, it's.
So one of the things that I think we're saying here, what about, let's go to that. What do the parents need to do? Do they need to inform the school? What do the parents do who are listening to this? They see some schools struggle.
Well, you want to go ahead?
So I did work in education for 20 years, and I think, but also as a person who had
And
repeated
you also
loss.
had the experience of having
Yes.
your parents die when you were
Yes.
how old?
11 and then 12, 10 months
And
apart.
what did you need at school, and how did you want people to approach that?
Right, exactly. So I'll start by saying that, you know, we would think that teachers are, but teachers don't have that education either. You know, I think we have to go back a layer to, we need to be educating educators on what to do. And I have a good friend whose mother died when she was very young. Her father was very supportive her whole childhood. And she grew up in Ireland, but it was like, okay, you know, your mother died, do your math. You know, but of course it was so many years ago too. There's definitely an improvement now. But I think that that goes back to educating educators, educating leaders in business. You know, we're just illiterate
That's the
around
big picture,
grief.
but what do I do now?
But what do you do now? So for me, it was very different, obviously. It was the 60s. And when my father died, he died first. That meant we had to move. And then I'm in another new school. And then within 10 months, my mother died, and I'm in a whole new place in upstate New York. And so there, you know, it's kind of like, well, you know, I've moved here, my family all died, okay, nice to meet you, and then you move on. And so it's no one who even knew them or knew you. And you said something earlier that really struck me, that home leaves you. And that's what happened to me, is that home left me.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of trying to keep my head above water and be a good girl and fit in this new place that never really felt like my home. So it does, I think, for some kids who have losses during those years, change the decisions you make throughout your life without the right support. And then when my son died, I had a 12-year-old and a 17-year-old, and their needs were very different
Did
from
you approach
each
the
other.
school then? Did you go into the school and talk to people?
My
or?
daughter, yes. I mean, we lived in a very small village, so something happens in a village of 2,500 people, everybody knows it right away. So I don't think I felt like, I think everybody, you know, they were at the memorial, they knew. And she was dealing with other issues as well, so it was a little different. My son, who was 17, was at a different school out of the community. So really for us, it was less school related and more community related. There was also a rift. We were going through a divorce, so then you've got two sets of people that are dealing with grief very differently.
Yeah, a
It was
lot of
very
complication.
complicated. A lot of very complicated.
Yeah. I just happened to be working at the University of Rochester when Scott died, and I worked with nurses. I was the psychiatric nurse and consultant to the surgical service. I did a lot of grief and loss training, and so I went over to the school and trained. They let me come in and train the teachers.
You were equipped. A lot of us aren't.
I mean, that was really, and I did it very early. In fact, I forgot about it. We just had got together with our old neighbors, and one of them said to me, I remember you came into my school and taught grief and loss.
Wow.
So that first year, but I actually went in and did that. But I think for people who are listening, you really need to know, if you can, I would go over to the school to the teachers they're working with. I would approach every teacher they're working with and say, you know, I'm sure you're aware of that, you know, and appreciate anything you can do to help the family out or help her out, or we're struggling with this, or, you know,
Absolutely.
whatever.
In my experience in the school too, many of the times the teachers wouldn't know what a child would be going through. They didn't know what happened at home, but they would come to me with criticism of the child's behavior. If they're
Right.
disengaged, they're acting out, they're exhibiting other symptoms of, you know, ADHD or just being disruptive. And, you know, giving them the context around why the child might be behaving that way could offer some sort of, you know, just patience and more empathy. Giving them a plan of what they could do if the child becomes dysregulated. Maybe they have an agreement where the child can go to the restroom for 5 minutes, or oftentimes when a child loses a parent, they become very fearful of the safety of their surviving parent. So does the child need to call mom really quick, or dad, or whoever is caring for them at that time? One thing we're very excited to offer is we're going to do on-site grief response. So we will be able to go into schools, into workplaces, and offer grief education, providing those frontline workers with children the tools to actually support individuals going through.
So what's coming up for me is if you live in Manhattan or LA, you could call and say, please come into my school.
Yes, yes.
And come in and do that.
Yeah, and we're also going to offer school-based grief programs. So being able to actually get into the schools where children and families might not be able to make it to our center, we'll come to you and we'll hold a grief group at your school.
Wow, this is great.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Amazing.
Really, really important kinds of things going on. So what would you expect to see? How do you know when the kid's in trouble, a teen or a preteen? How do we know that? We get asked that all the time,
Yeah.
don't we? That's one of the number one things is warning signs.
And like I've said before, it's hard to tease out how much of acting out is just normal teenage stuff, and normal being a normal teen, and how much is grief
and normal grief and loss stuff.
Right. How much is related to the death, the loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even if it's related to the loss, it can be normal.
Right.
I mean, there's a worry about there's normal grieving.
Right. When is it a red flag? When is it a
When
problem?
is it a red flag? And
Well, I think certainly for, if your child will not get out of bed and will not go to school, over time, that's obviously a major issue, trying to suss out whatever it is that's happening.
Let me stop there, and I want to get back to you after I say this.
Yeah.
Craig Scott, whose sister was killed in Columbine, he was on the floor with his friend who got shot. He did not go to school for a year.
Oh, of course.
And so there may be some times when people will actually need to drop out of school.
That's right. That's right.
And he finally went, was able to go back to school
Yeah.
a year later, but it was a year later before he could do it.
Yeah.
But I think school refusal is a
Right.
big issue.
It is a big issue.
Understandably, why would you
And
want
some
to
of
do
it
that?
is not, sometimes you just got to do it. And,
Yeah.
it's been 2 months or a month or,
It's very tricky as a parent to help your child figure out, okay, what's the most important thing right now? What is it that you really need, if there's anything. But as you said before, Heidi, you're suddenly in a family where everything has changed. You have if you're fortunate, you have 2 functioning parents.
Oh, really?
If you're fortunate.
If you're fortunate.
If I may say that I
she
believe
said.
I was functional, and then suddenly...
I wouldn't say I was functioning.
I think I was pretty functional. But, suddenly you're living in this complete depression and upset. And so it's so difficult.
I think there's also often another layer for parents, which is when you're not connected to the school, when you're not an educator, which is what judgment am I going to get when I'm allowing my child not to go to school,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So
right,
we're
that's
caught
right.
between
Right.
those 2 places, and it's very difficult.
Yeah.
I like to say to people, if you've got a neighbor who has a kid around your kid's age that knows your kid, talk to him and say, what do you think? How do you think my kid's doing? You know him. How do what's your observation about what's going on, with them? Are they okay? My pediatrician came over and wandered around my lawn all the time. He was a good friend. And I just see him outside walking around the yard. And we got a dog, and he's like, that is so great, you to have a dog. Because it was fun having a dog, because people could come and talk to us about something else when we
Right.
went to soccer games.
Well, when Scott first died, everybody avoided us.
Yeah.
Sure.
But when we got a puppy, everybody came up because they wanted to see the dog.
Yeah, they wanted to see the puppy. But so he said to me, I want to tell you something, Gloria, and I think this is really important. He said, you need to take care of yourself. He said, one of the leading signs of how a family's going to do with grief and loss is how the parents do.
Yes.
So that's one of the things I want to say to everybody. You got to take care of yourself. You got to eat. You got to run. You want your kids to be healthy. Well, do it yourself and teach them. You know how they can handle it. Try to be an example. I know it's not easy. You know, if you can, I should put it
It's
that
like
way.
putting the mask on yourself when you're on the airplane first, and then the child. Like you have to find a way to be there. And
But I want to say another thing. Heidi, you left home because you were in college.
Right.
You go back, these college-age kids, which I want to say they're not teens, but in a way they are because everybody regresses.
yes,
We've noticed people regress
good
when they have a
point.
loss.
Very good point.
And you go off to college and nobody knows your brother.
Right,
Which is a blessing and a curse.
right.
Because you can be invisible, but then, you want support. But I identify with the teen information better than the adult because I was 20. Because you want support and you don't want support. And as Georgia said, we want to be normal. We don't want some weird thing we don't want a death to have happened to us. It's bizarre, it's weird, we don't want to be like, oh, there's the person that had a death, We don't want that. You all know that because you've had these experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's why I also think it's very important to have another trusted adult for your child, especially a teen or preteen, to talk to, because they might not want to come to you. They don't want to upset mom or dad. They don't want to, disrupt you further. So making sure that they have another resource where they can have an outlet if needed, and they might open up in a way that they want it to you. And trusting when your child comes to you and saying that they're upset about something, listening to that. Teens they're in such a very interesting development phase where their brains are going through such a drastic hormonal
their hormones
change.
are-
Yeah. So everything feels bigger. Everything feels colossal to them. If their hair is a mess, it really is the worst day.
That's
Yes.
right.
If they have acne, it's the end of the world.
Yeah. Yeah, so not minimizing
Yeah.
them either.
Yeah.
If they are having that really hard time, having a hard time getting out of bed, giving them that space and that really honoring how they're feeling instead of kind of trying to just push them along, allowing them that opportunity to feel all of their feels.
I like this. And maybe changing our expectations. Hey, maybe, initially when you have the death of someone in your family, you do need to take some time off of school. You do need to go in late. There does need to be less expected.
Absolutely. Well, Heidi, I love your little list. Have you got your list?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. I knew you were going to ask me that. I'm not sure if I brought it. Let's see. I might be able to remember it. Yeah, I don't have it.
Okay.
So we asked teenagers what advice they would give to parents, and I can remember some of them. They said one of the things they said is tell the parents not to say life is no longer worth living, because that tells us that we're not enough.
Wow. Yeah.
Have the same amount of photos of me, the living person, the living child, around the house that you do of the dead people, because we're counting. I did count, by the way. 45 of Scott, one of me. What else did they say? Oh, on social media, put photos of us as well as the person that died with the same amount.
On social media.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot that goes up with
Don't
the person that's
forget
died.
me.
The person that has died is front and center. My brother, too, he was such an...
He never made a mistake. Hasn't made
Right.
a mistake
Perfect.
for 40
See
years.
that? Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So there's a lot that goes into remembering, and so remember the other kids too.
That's really good.
And you all probably have some advice around that, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Do you have a piece of advice for parents?
I think you just have to try to ask and just talk as much as you can. Is it okay if I do this? Does this feel okay? I mean, in my house, I have tons of pictures of Cooper, and my daughter would just put them down if she had friends coming over, and it was like, oh my God, I can't believe she's doing that. And then I realized this is what she needs to do,
Yeah.
and it's okay. But really just trying to communicate, be open and listen.
I like that.
Yeah, create space to allow the child to just still be a kid. They don't need to fully be in their grief at all time. They can still go out and enjoy life and, have celebrations and create lovely memories. So letting them, process at their own pace, at their own speed, because grief looks different for everyone, and especially, for children too. So they might be really great one day and have a hard day, and that's okay. But children are more resilient. People are more resilient than we think. So allowing space for that too.
You know, something that comes to mind for me is that relationships between siblings aren't always easy.
Right.
And it isn't always that, you know, we just loved them so much and now they're gone. So there's a lot of complex grief that happens when you're a couple of older teens, or you're, you know, in my case, my sons were 17 and 20. They were really close in some ways. I think that, you know, there was the big brother picking on the little brother. It's very complicated when something like that happens. So you have to let them, you know, you can't deify the child who's gone, kind of like what you were talking about. And I'll just say, when I wrote my memoir, my younger son read it, and he's, you know, he was great, but he said, every one of those scenes I could write from a completely different perspective. Like that
you should do it. I would love that.
Like that wasn't my experience of Eric, but I understand that memoir is your experience.
There's another book, the mother's experience.
I said to him, you should
and the
write
child's
that.
experience.
Yeah.
That would be an amazing book.
Because, you know, he was my child, and there was a lot of complex things going on between us, but when it's the younger brother and the older brother, you know, you've got a lot of work. You've got enough to work through for the rest of your life there, you know.
Yes, I like it. You've got enough to work through for the rest of your life, because you will working on relationships, and it's all about story, and you change your story as you mature. The story becomes different for different people. 100%. And yes, everyone would write that story a little differently. That's the beauty of being different human beings.
Right.
So I'm thinking that we should go around and say how people can get a hold of people.
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh.
Because we have a minute.
Okay.
So, yes.
Tell us how to get a hold of your book.
Well,
Or you online?
Yes, the best way for anyone to get a hold of me is at my website, which is just www.caseymulliganwalsh.com. And right on the home page there are all the places that the book can be ordered, and there's links to my publications and all my other writing about grief.
Right.
Let's see. Well, I have a website called attachmentgrief.com, which offers a lot of advice, talking about ideas and things that I've learned and to understand about the death of a child. And then you can also just email me at danalearner34@gmail.com.
Our House, New York City. You can Google it. You'll find us there. We'll have all of our services and our inquiry form available.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us on this show, and I want to thank everybody for joining us. And Heidi and I always want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own, and God bless.